Hello, I would like to make my speech on sociological aspects of economic growth. Social structure of growth has been neglected by policies for many decades. My speech will be based on the book Sociological Aspects of Economic Growth, written by Bert F. Hazlitt in 1960. Let me first mention about Professor Hazlitt. He was a professor of social sciences at the University of Chicago. He was also an expert to United Nations and UNESCO, and was an advisor to the government of India. When we look at the history, we mostly see the economic growth as a dominant factor in developing and less developed countries. But the social structure of economic growth has been usually neglected by the policies or by the politicians. Professor Hazlitt did highlight economic growth cannot be considered purely in economic terms. Cultural change needs to be included in economic growth. There are a number of choices which could be related with economic activity. These are: the first choice of behavior is in methods of achieving the social objective. In this case, economic tasks or responsibilities are assigned either on the basis of achievement or according to the ascriptions, that is, a person's traditional social status or his family bonds. Primitive societies differentiate with their cultural values. For instance, a person's achievement does not usually place a high value. The second choice of behavior choices involve standards of value in the distribution among performers of economically desirable tasks. Here the choice is between a particular local value and a universally applicable principle. The third these choices of behavior is between different levels of interest in the social objective. One of the important issues addressed by Hazlitt is that power of central leader is absolute, not in advanced societies. In those countries, the economic organizations and laws are designed to serve the purposes of these leaders. There is an important differentiation in between advanced and less advanced societies. There is a strong attitude of economic self-interest, particularly by those who being to the elite groups in power, but in more highly advanced economies, attitudes of group interests are prevalent or at least highly valued. And strong tendencies toward universalisms or community interests. The author stated that the effects of social and cultural factors determines how easily the objectives of a development plan can be reached, rather than to determine if economic growth will be possible. The author asks three main questions that need to be answered. The first one: what kind of deviating or new and different behavior in a traditional culture will help change a system of particularism diffuse economic activity? The second question is: which group of individuals possess this deviating behavior? And the third question is that does this group arise because of the peculiar social characteristics of culture in which it originates, or is it outside the culture in its language, religion, or in another sociologically identifiable way? The author in those years stated that the knowledge they have at the beginning of 1960s to answer sufficiently those questions. He underlined that self-interest of ruling elite must be replaced by group interest. As for the second and third question, it was stated that economic leadership in less developed countries seems to be concentrated among a group of people who also hold a political power. Professor Hazlitt put 8 type of cases or idea circumstances for economic growth by considering various countries who also in the world at that time. These are: first one, expansion is dominant, unplanned. In this category, he puts the United States from 1830 to 1890. The second one, expansion is dominant and government sponsored. We can give an example: the Soviet Union under this case. The third one, expansion is satellite, unplanned. Australia can be given as an example in this category to 1914, or Canada to 1900. The fourth one, expansion is satellite, government-sponsored. Manchuria under the Japanese control, and perhaps some areas of Africa, the Portuguese colonies. The fifth one, internal, dominant and unplanned. 19th century France and Germany are taking place in this case. The sixth one, internal, dominant, government-sponsored. In this category, we can give Japan and Turkey since 1922 as an example. And the seventh one, internal, satellite and unplanned. Denmark or Switzerland before 1914 could be given an example. And the last one, satellite, government sponsored. The countries of Eastern Europe are taking place in this case, according to the Professor Hazlitt. In consequence, economic growth cannot be achieved purely with economic measures. Rather, socio-cultural factors need to be embodied in economic measures. In recent policies, we clearly see that in most of the developing and less developed countries, social entrepreneurship and development are emphasized by international organizations, and many projects are conducted by those institutions. The only factor to be hidden in economic and social development, from my point of view, is culture and its adoption for technological change. It seems impossible to achieve growth unless the cultural factors adopt the technical change in those countries.